I can still recall Leo's birth date. My parents informed me that I would be a big sister when I was 6 years old. They assured me that I would have a lifelong best friend and that it would be fantastic. They failed to inform me that I would likewise feel invisible. Growing up in the Mitchell home taught me early on that there was a distinct hierarchy of importance. My name is Mia. I, along with the family dog, was somewhere below Leo, who was at the top. It was also not subtle. Mom would prepare Leah's breakfast every morning just the way she wanted it. Toast cut just the right diagonally, 4 pieces per princess, and 2 sunny-side-up eggs. I would be given a box of cereal in the interim. Things like these occurred frequently. Dad complained about the expensive braces for months when I required them. When Leah required them 3 years later, money was no longer a concern. Even the fancy, clear ones I desired but couldn't have were given to her. Every time I attempted to voice my concerns, they were dismissed. However, the family celebrated at Leah's favorite restaurant when she received an A in maths. Birthdays were no exception. Mine were straightforward backyard parties with a few people and a cake from the supermarket. Conversely, Leah hosted extravagant parties that featured bouncy houses, paid performers, and specially designed cakes. One time I heard Mom say to her acquaintance, "Leah simply enjoys these things more." Mia is realistic. The worst aspect was Leah's gradual transformation. She was pleasant at first. She became precisely what you would anticipate after years of being treated as though she could do no wrong, even though we used to construct blanket forts and make up ridiculous stories together. By the time I was in middle school, Leah would come into my room and make demands. "Where's my blue sweater, Maya?" she would inquire, prying into my closet without my consent. I would remark, "Leah, that's mine." My mother purchased it for my birthday. Leah would simply call for Mom, though, and she would always say to me, "Mia, don't be selfish. Give it to your sister to borrow." I discovered that I could find solace elsewhere, reduce my expectations, and choose my conflicts wisely. My secure haven was school. I concentrated on my priorities as Leah received unending acclaim for reciting 2 lines in a school play. I was excelling in advanced classes, winning science fairs, and secretly formulating my escape strategy. I hoped that my parents would finally be pleased with me when I received my acceptance letter to State University on a full scholarship. But Leah was the center of attention at dinner that evening. She talked endlessly about her election to the 7th grade student council. During a rare pause, I attempted to share my news. I said, "Mom, I received a full scholarship." "It's good, honey. Tell us more about your campaign posters." "Leah, my dear," Mom said. I only returned home for significant holidays after I started college, and even then I was eager to get away. Each visit was identical. While my dean's list honors and internship offers were hardly acknowledged, Leah's accomplishments were celebrated. I discovered that my trip and my expectations should be kept to a minimum. I would dash back to my dorm after finals, where my accomplishments felt unique and unmatched by those of my younger sister. Everything changed when I received the following Facebook message during my junior year. "Hey, remember me? Harvard High student Olivia Reuter. You were a freshman and I was a senior." Naturally, I thought of him, the attractive member of the debate team who had never taken notice of me before. We began talking daily, reminiscing about high school and college. He was back in our hometown, working as an engineer, and something just clicked between us. After I graduated, I moved back home for a job as a project manager at Turner & Associates. Olivia and I met for coffee during my first week back, and that coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into dating, and soon we were looking for an apartment together. The only downside was my parents' continued indifference. They barely noticed my new job or relationship because they were too busy worrying about Leah. "She's having such a hard time adjusting to college," Mom would say during our rare phone calls, "Not everyone can just breeze through college like you did." Thankfully, Olivier's family made up for it. His parents, Nick and Miriam, treated me like the daughter they never had, and his sister, Kate, became the kind of sister I had always wished Leah could be. They came over for dinner weekly, helped us furnish our apartment, and actually cared about my career. "We're so proud of you both," Miriam told us at our small wedding 3 years later. The wedding was simple, held in Olivier's parents' backyard with just close friends and family. My parents came, but they spent most of the reception talking about Leah's summer internship. Despite that, life felt perfect. I was doing great at work, happily married, and finally part of a family that cared about me. A couple of years after the wedding, I got pregnant, and I thought life couldn't get any better. When our son Tommy was born, healthy and beautiful, it felt like everything was perfect. Olivier seemed like a loving father, and I thought we had it all. But things started to change after Tony turned 1. Olivier grew distant, worked late more often, and canceled our date nights. I told myself it was just the stress of being new parents, but deep down I knew something was wrong. One evening, while I was feeding Tony in his high chair, Olivier walked in looking exhausted. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice shaking. "I've met someone else. Her name is Corinne. She's a client at work, and I'm in love with her." The divorce happened quickly and surprisingly, without much conflict. Olivier moved to Kansas with Corinne, but promised to take care of Tony and me financially. "I may be a terrible husband," he told me during our last meeting, "but I won't be a terrible father." After signing the divorce papers, I sat in my lawyer's office holding Tony close. At just 3 years old, he was too young to understand why Daddy wasn't coming home anymore. Olivier's family became my lifeline after the divorce. Despite everything that had happened, Nick and Miriam stayed devoted grandparents to Tony, and Kate became the kind of aunt every kid dreams of. Tony would light up every time we visited their house, running straight to the toy corner they had set up just for him. Nick would get down on the floor to play trucks with him, and Kate always had some fun new craft or game ready. Visiting my own parents, though, was completely different. I tried to take Tommy there sometimes, hoping they'd want to bond with their only grandchild, but their indifference was heartbreaking. "Mia, don't let him touch that vase," Mom would snap, barely looking up from her magazine. "And make sure he doesn't run around too much. He'll scratch the floors." Tony would cling to my leg, clearly sensing how cold the atmosphere was. It was even worse when Leah showed up during those visits. "There's my successful girl," Dad would beam as Leah walked in, going on about her new job at some trading company. They would hang on her every word, completely ignoring Tommy, even when he tried to show them his latest drawing. The difference between how Olivier's family treated us and how my parents acted was hard to ignore. Over time, I visited my parents less and less. Instead, I focused on the people who truly cared about Tony and me. I focused on what I could control, my career and building a stable, loving home for Tony. With Kate and her parents helping with childcare, I started taking on bigger challenges at work. When my boss warned me about the Canadian account, saying, "It's high risk. No one's closed this deal in 4 years," I didn't hesitate. "I can do it," I said confidently, and I did. After 4 months of late nights, video calls across time zones, and carefully crafted proposals, I not only closed the deal but expanded it to double its original size. That success opened the door to even more big projects, and each one built my reputation. Soon, I was the go-to person for the toughest clients. When I landed the Microsoft account my team toasted, to Mia Mitchell, the miracle worker. The promotion to senior account director came soon after, along with an office and a salary that left me speechless. The bonus from that deal was the final piece I needed. That weekend, Tommy and I went house hunting. The realtor showed us a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment. "This one has a park nearby, and the school district is excellent," she said. Tony ran from room to room, thrilled about having his own space for his toys. As I watched him explore, I pulled up the calculator app on my phone to check the mortgage numbers one last time. "We'll take it," I said that night as I tucked Tony into bed in our old apartment for one of the last times. He asked, "Mommy, are we really getting a new home with my own room?" "With your own room," I told him. "A special art corner and space for all your books." He hugged me tightly. "You're the best mommy ever." In that moment, I realized something important. While I couldn't change my past or my parents' behavior, I could break the cycle. My son would never feel less than or second best. Things shifted quickly after news of my promotion and new apartment got out. One morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Sweetie, we haven't seen you and Tony in ages. Why don't you come over this weekend?" I almost dropped my coffee. This was the same woman who'd barely acknowledged me for the last 6 years. I thought about Tony, who still asked about his grandparents sometimes. Maybe people really can change. So the next weekend, I took Tony to their house. The difference was shocking. "There's my favorite grandson," Dad called out as we walked in. Considering Tony was their only grandson, it wasn't saying much, but still. "Look what Grandma got you," Mom said, holding out a new toy truck. Something she'd never done before. "And I made cookies. You like chocolate chip, right?" Tony, too young to remember how distant they had been before, was thrilled. I stood there watching as my mom actually got down on the floor to play with him. Something I'd never seen her do in my entire life. Later, while Tony was busy with his new truck, Mom turned to me. "Mia, honey, we'd love to have him over more often. Maybe some weekends. You must need a break sometimes." It felt surreal, but I decided to go with it. What was that saying about not looking a gift horse in the mouth? Over the next few months, my parents surprisingly became involved grandparents. They started asking to have Tony stay over on weekends. I used that time to catch up with Kate, who noticed the change. "You seem happier," Kate said during one of our shopping trips. "More relaxed. It's nice to see them finally making an effort." I admitted, but as time went on, I started to see why. The truth became clearer when the requests began rolling in. Small things at first. Mom needed help with the plumbing bill. Dad's watch needed repairs. They were easy to cover with my new salary, so I agreed each time, remembering how they had paid for Leah's dance lessons and summer camps while denying me those opportunities. In a strange way, it felt good to be the one they were leaning on now. Then I heard about Leah. Her job at the trading company wasn't going as planned. She had been passed over for several promotions. "It's just office politics," Mom said defensively during one of our family dinners. "They don't recognize talent." As Leah's struggles became more obvious, the money requests for my parents grew bigger. First, they needed a new refrigerator, then home repairs, and then came the big one. "Sweetheart," Dad said one Thursday while Tony napped upstairs, "we've been thinking about getting a new car. The payments would be a bit steep for us, but with your new position," he named a figure that would have made me gasp a year ago, but now it was manageable. "We'll pay you back," Mom promised, though we both knew they wouldn't. I agreed anyway. Maybe I was buying their validation, or maybe I just wanted to prove something to myself. Either way, I said yes. I started sending them a check every month to cover the car payments. "Just be careful," Kate told me over coffee the next day. "Money can make things messy." I nodded, but inside I thought, how messy could it get? I had more than enough, and if it meant Tony could have grandparents in his life, wasn't it worth it? It was just a normal Saturday at work. I was in the middle of a client presentation when a sharp, sudden pain hit me, making me double over in my chair. "Call an ambulance," I heard someone say. She's white as a sheet." After that, everything was a blur. People rushing around, voices overlapping. The paramedics arrived quickly and helped me onto a stretcher. "Classic appendicitis symptoms," one of them said. "We need to get her to Memorial right away." Through the haze of pain, only one thought stood out clearly. Tony. He needed to be picked up from school in 3 hours. At the hospital, the diagnosis was confirmed almost immediately. "Your appendix needs to come out," the doctor said. "We'll operate soon, but you'll need to stay for at least 3 days afterward." "I need to make a call first," I said, trying to stay calm. My hands shook as the nurse handed me my phone. I dialed Mom's number. She picked up on the 5th ring. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I'm in the hospital. It's my appendix. They need to operate right away. Can you please pick up Tony from school? I need someone to watch him for a couple of days while I recover." There was a pause. Then Mom said, "Oh, honey, that's not possible. Your father and I are getting ready for Leah's promotion party. She finally made junior executive at her company." The pain in my stomach was nothing compared to the one in my chest. "Mom, please," I said, my voice cracking. "I need help. Tony needs to be picked up in less than 3 hours." "Well, that's really not our problem," she replied, her tone suddenly cold. "We're in a hurry to get to the restaurant. There will be 80 people there. We can't be babysitting." "Babysitting? He's your grandson," I said, feeling both anger and disbelief. "Look, Mia," she sighed, as if I was the one being unreasonable. "Tony is your responsibility. He's always so noisy and touching everything. Honestly, it's quite a burden." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "A burden? After everything I've done for you? I've been paying your car loan for the past year. Every time you needed money." She cut me off with a laugh that sent a chill through me. "Oh, we won't be needing your handouts anymore. Leah's new position comes with an excellent salary. She's going to help us now instead of you." Then the line went dead. I lay in the hospital bed, phone still pressed to my ear, tears mixing with the sweat on my face. All those months of helping them, all the money I gave, all the weekends I spent pretending we were a happy family, and this was how it ended. The moment someone better came along, Tony and I were nothing more than an inconvenience. The nurse gently touched my arm. "Miss Mitchell, we need to prep you for surgery now." I nodded, already pulling up Kate's number. She picked up on the first ring. "Kate," my voice cracked. "I'm in the hospital. Appendicitis. They're prepping me for surgery. Could you please pick up Tony from school? I hate to ask." "Text me the school details," she interrupted, "right away. What time does he need to be picked up?" 3:15, I said. "Kate, I'm so sorry to impose." "Stop it," she said firmly. "Tony is my nephew. Of course, I'll get him. We'll have a sleepover at my place, won't we? He loves playing with Sam anyway." I could hear her grabbing her keys in the background. "Thank you," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Call your parents later," she said. "Focus on getting better. Tony will be fine with me, I promise." The next thing I remembered was waking up in recovery, groggy from the anesthesia. My first thought was about Tony, but there was already a text from Kate waiting for me. "Tony is having a blast. We made pizza and built a blanket fort. Don't worry about anything except getting well." She sent photos over the next 3 days. Tony playing with her dog Sam, helping her bake cookies, and falling asleep surrounded by stuffed animals. Each picture made my heart ache with gratitude. When I was finally discharged, Kate drove me to her house. Tony ran to me the moment I walked in, but stopped just short when he remembered. "Mommy, are you still out?" "I'm okay, buddy," I said, pulling him into a gentle hug. Kate helped me make breakfast every morning, and Sam slept in my blanket fort, he said proudly. Kate helped us get home, stock my fridge, and promised to check in daily. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of recovery. Kate brought over meals and kept Tony entertained when I needed to rest. One evening, as Tony cuddled next to me during bedtime stories, I was scrolling through social media. That's when I saw them. Dozens of photos from Leah's promotion party. They were all posted on the same day I'd been in surgery. I was in the hospital while Mom and Dad stood proudly beside Leah in her fancy dress, smiling for photos. There were champagne toasts, a big cake, and everyone laughing and celebrating. Meanwhile, I lay in a hospital bed and Tony, their grandson, was brushed off as a burden. That night, after Tony fell asleep, I sat at my computer. The first thing I did was cancel the automatic monthly payment I had been sending for their car. Then I blocked them on every social media platform. I looked at the framed photo on my desk, Tony and me at the park, both laughing as Kate's dog, Sam, chased Bubbles. Something shifted inside me. For years I had been trying to buy my parents love with money and patience. But real family picks you up from the hospital. Real family builds blanket forts with your child. Real family shows up. Months passed and life settled into a calm, happy rhythm. Kate and her parents became a big part of our lives, filling our weekends with barbecues, park outings, and movie nights. Then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Mom's number flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, my finger hovering over the decline button. Then I decided to answer. "Hi, Mom." "Sweetheart, how are you?" Her voice was sugary sweet, the tone she always used when she wanted something. "What do you want, Mom?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. She let out a dramatic sigh. "Well, since you asked, your father and I are in a bit of a situation with the car payments." I felt a laugh building in my chest, but held it back. "Oh, yes," she said, pausing as if for effect. "We thought Leah would help us with her new position and all, but when we asked her, she refused. Can you believe it? She said she had her own expenses to deal with after everything we've done for her." The irony was almost too much. "We were hoping," she continued, her voice quieter now, "that maybe you could start helping with the payments again, just until we figure something else out." This time, I couldn't stop the laugh. It came out sharp and bitter. "Mia, this isn't funny." Mom snapped. "We could lose the car." I laughed again, this time lighter, almost free. "Not my problem anymore. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked Dad's too. Through the open window, I could hear Tony giggling in the backyard as he played with Kate and Sam. That sound, real laughter, real love, real family, made my decision feel right. The calls started coming in waves after that. First, from Mom's phone, then Dad's. When I didn't answer, their voicemails ranged from tearful begging to angry demands. The text messages were just as bad. "Mia, please, we're your parents. This is so selfish of you. We'll lose the car because of you." Each message only confirmed I made the right choice. Not one of them mentioned Tony. Not one showed regret for how they had treated us. It was all about them, their needs, their car, their feelings. I'd had enough of this after a week. I finally felt like I could breathe again after blocking their phones entirely and configuring email filters to route their messages to the trash. "You okay?" We were watching Tony and Sam chase each other in her parents' backyard one Thursday afternoon when Kate inquired. Miriam was setting the patio table for our weekly family dinner while Nick was grilling hamburgers. She offered me a lemonade and I said, "You know what I really am? I keep waiting to feel guilty or sad, but mostly I just feel free." Her words, "You gave them more chances than they deserved," came as she squeezed my hand. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. Mommy, look what Grandpa Nick taught me." Tony rushed over and demonstrated a brand new Frisbee move. Miriam clapped from the patio as I watched Nick leave the grill to help Tony improve his throw. This is what family should be. People who are there for both the good times and the bad, including school pickups and hospital runs. To be honest, I don't care if my parents still own their automobile or if Leah has finally stepped up to help them. I don't know if my parents still whine about their ungrateful oldest daughter or host lavish parties. I don't drive by their house when I'm close by, I don't question our mutual acquaintances about them, and I don't look at their social media accounts. I am aware that Tony hasn't inquired about them since that day. Children are shrewd enough to recognize true affection. He has an aunt who makes blanket forts with him, grandparents who never miss his school plays, and a mother who at last realized that love is unconditional. Tony brought a family tree project home from school last week. He had dragged Kate and Sam close by, with Nick and Miriam directly beside me. His father has his own little branch. Leah and my parents weren't on the paper at all, but we've managed to keep things civil with video conversations and holiday visits. He showed me his drawing and said, "Is this okay, Mommy?" Miss Dave said family trees usually have more people. In my words, these are the only ones we need. I grinned and put his sketch on the refrigerator next to a picture of his most recent birthday celebration where everyone was seated around the cake and grinning broadly. "It's perfect, baby," I expressed to him. Absolutely perfect. The family you are born into may not always be the one you were intended to have. To make room for those who genuinely love you, you may need to let go of others who ought to love you. I didn't learn that lesson for 33 years. However, I would say that it was worth the wait to witness Tony grow up surrounded by genuine, unconditional love.